Hello and welcome to this episode of Search Sessions. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by one of my favourite personas of the creative industry, Julian Dougie, International CEO and Vice Chair of VCCP. Dougie, as he's known to most, is a serial entrepreneur and founder outside of the industry. He's also on the advisory board at Meta, chair of the advisory board at BRIM, Black Representation in Marketing, and most recently has finished his tenure as president of the IPA. And it was here at the IPA that Dougie and I met just over a decade ago when the organization took a pivot shift to try and promote initiatives in equality, more diversity-led initiatives, and promoting inclusion across the creative and marketing space. Dougie, welcome.
Excellent. Great to be part of this. Thanks for having me on.
So I'd like to start by talking, if we can, about VCCP. You've had an amazing ride over 15, 16 years. When I first dealt with the business, there were 60 odd people. It's now the number one ranked business in the UK. You're in charge of the brand internationally and growth, but you've been surrounded by all of these amazing leaders. What's the secret sauce? What is it that you've done so well and continue to do so well?
It's a good question. I'm not sure I exactly know. I will give you my best guess at the ingredients, but I think often with the way with agencies, because agencies are people business, there's sometimes a bit of alchemy involved as well. But I think the things that I've been at VCCP for 15 years, and we're a 21-year-old company, so I've been here for 3/4 of it, and things that have struck me from when I joined and remained true throughout has been that it's a company that's always highly valued talent and the skill set of talent. So right from day one, I think it was quite rare back in 2002 for an agency with clients of significant scale, and it was founded with O2, which was a third biggest mobile phone brand in the UK at the time, but still very big. It was BT Cellnet. I think setting out at the outset and called out explicitly by the founders that all parts of the marketing mix were of equal importance. There's a phrase, it only works if it all works. If you come into our building, it's plastered all over the place. And it's a principle by which the company's always behaved. I think having that belief that back then there wasn't an above the line and below the line, or the cool stuff and then the grubby stuff. I think having that, putting equal importance on all elements of the mix as a capability to deliver growth, business results, to move the needle. I think that's become part of the culture throughout. So as the company's grown, as new technologies have become available, as we've moved into new capabilities and new geographies, that's remained true. Everyone has a seat at the top table. And I think having that diversity of thought as well as of people over time has really added to quite a unique blend of skills, characters, personalities, perspectives. So I think it was intentional from the start, but I think where it's taken us to perhaps never could have been understood. I don't think even the founders, when they set it up, imagine they'd get to be number one UK by billings at least in 20 years. But I guess that's what's happened.
It's a tremendous achievement. And obviously your role is hugely attached to that international side, takes you into lots of different markets. Do you find that leadership styles, leadership culture changes, or you have to adapt slightly in some of those different regions?
Definitely. I think there's some universal truths, some elements that are consistent everywhere. And I think beyond those, there is a need to adapt for sure. I think, in terms of the enduring fundamentals, I think it's true that to be a leader, people you need to have people follow you. I remember speaking to Niels, who's now Uncommon. We used to work together at Grey, and I got him along to do an IPA training course on leadership. I thought it was great to hear from a creative voice. And his big thing was about taking people with you. And I think that's really true, whether you're trying to lead a team in New York or Singapore or Shanghai or Stoke, all the places where we have offices. You're not leading if people aren't following you. You might be forging a path, you might be doing something, but you're not really taking people with you. And I think in our industry, you can't achieve anything of note without taking people with you, without having people who follow. So I think that's the universal truth. I think how you can convince people to follow you or encourage or persuade people to follow you may well be different. Even if I think in the US, the West Coast to the East Coast, total different styles of working, getting things done. So there's a need to flex. But I think there's sort of core principles that apply everywhere. But I think really being attuned to your team is absolutely key, and what motivates them. I think it's also true across different capabilities. So the first 5 years I worked at VCCP, I ran the O2 business, which was UK, massively predominantly UK piece of business at that time. And it was just as important to understand what motivated people across the different capabilities, because we're a full service account. So everything right from the store to the site, to the O2 itself, to sponsorship assets, to the broadcast, and understanding what motivated or what motivates all the different people on the team was almost the most important job. And then trying to get a cohesive unit out of that, where you do have a North Star you're all gunning for. And I think having worked at such a multidisciplined team, or led such a multidisciplined team for years, really set me up well to take a more international role, where you can't turn up and go, we know how to do it, follow us. That's not really going to wash. You've got to have it starts from a respect for the skill sets others and the values others bring to the table, but then corralling that and shaping that in the direction that you want people to follow.
Interesting, absolutely. And I guess, if I think back to when Ian Priest launched his kind of adapt program at the IPA, it was always about how can we now start pushing the boundaries, changing things, not just in our industry, but across other industries.
Yes.
What does being a diverse leader mean to you personally? And how's the market changed over the past decade from your perspective?
I mean, for me, I think what's changed massively is 10 years ago, I think there was still a lot of discussion and debate and evidence being delivered on making the business case for diversity. There were lots of articles from the consultancies or the accountancy firms literally making the case, going, look, we can prove across multiple sectors that if you have a diverse C-suite or a diverse workforce, you will outperform competitors. But the debate was still being had of, is it true? Or is it just some sort of, slightly left-leaning or over-liberal whitewash that people are trying to put on it? Is there a robust case? I think in recent years, thankfully, no one's having to make the case anymore. Where the energy is going is far more productive, is going, well, how, of course it's true, but how do we make it work? Because that's actually harder. It's easier to debate, is it true or not? That's like an academic exercise. It's far more a practitioner level, far more, vocational, going, well, how this is true, how do we pull it off? How do we get there more quickly? Because we know in our industry, and in many industries, that we're not where we need to be in terms of diversity. It's interesting to look internationally where different countries are, but I think that's been a huge change. I think for me personally, it's made it an easier time for me to lead. I remember when I first got involved in the IPA in what was then called an ethnic diversity forum. used to be a lot of debates about the lack of representation in the industry. And my starting point was always, this is a point of difference industry. This, everything that we do in this industry is to try and take a brand or a product or a service or an organization and make them distinctive and make them stand out. So my feeling was always I was at an advantage coming from an ethnic diverse background, coming from Manchester, because I didn't look or sound like everyone else in the room. So to me, that was great. Now, that's not the same. Not everyone has that feeling if they're in that position, but for me, it was great. So it's been I find a very energizing time to be in the industry, to be in a leadership position where the industry's got its head around, we need to do this, and is very active in trying to accelerate it. I think in recent years, in my time as IPA president, my agenda was all about acceleration. It was called 10X. It was coming through year 2 of COVID and the lockdowns and trying to take that discontinuous moment to change things or to really get on with things. And I think the working environment is very different now than it was pre-COVID. I think the important thing is that we don't let things slip back, that we, especially with the pressures on finances, with the pressures on commercials, that we don't slip back into less progressive ways of working.
Absolutely. But if you think about, some of your, either through the role of VCCP or IPA, you mentioned the 10X program. You've been connected to lots of diversity and equality-led initiatives. What do you think's been the most successful? And where do you think we still need to evolve and improve?
Well, I think the most tricky, because I don't think the job's never done. So I'll talk at an agency level and industry level, but I think I'll start with why diversity initiatives fail, because they often fail. And I think that tends to be for a couple of factors. One, they fail when it's not fully bought into by the leadership team. If the leaders of your agency or client organizations don't fully believe that this is the better way to do business, it will fail. It's crucial that there's that real buy-in. We have that at VCCP, and I think increasingly now you see it across the industry. But I think where initiatives failed, that was the first hurdle. If it's just a passion project of some people in the lower or middle ranks of your organization, it's not ever going to make a real meaningful shift. It's got to have buy-in at the top. I think there has to be investment of time, giving people enough time to do it, because often what happens, it often becomes an extracurricular activity, and for the people in the most marginalized groups, whatever they may be. So if diversity is a couple of people's jobs who it's on top of their day job, don't expect any change to happen anytime soon. That's if ever. And I think getting those two factors of going, it's making it an absolute priority of an organization, as bought into and visibly called out by leadership, coupled with giving it sufficient time. Now, it's difficult because we're a business that's, everyone's stretched. I think if you say this is core to our success as an organization, then you will make the time for people and it not just falling on the marginalized groups. And I think at VCCP, we've had great success, an almost exponential acceleration over recent years, where we went from having nobody in a role looking at this to had one lady, Sian, who came to me and who was an account handler, who said she wanted to take on a role as the diversity lead. And she wrote herself a job description, showed great drive and initiative. So she kicked it off. And after a few years, we evolved it such that we went, this isn't one person's job, it's everyone's job. And we're a lot of people in the UK VCP now. So we now have a DE&I collective, which is a group of about 35, 40 people that go across every vertical capability and every horizontal of level right across our organization, each of whom brings their own perspective, their own passion point, their own ideas. but also means, so they determine our agenda and the themes and the topics that we focus on. But also, because they're from right across the organization, they're able to be representative within their own bits, whether that's media or behavioral science or production, or if it's senior or junior level. So it means the organizations can be heard, hears information, lives it. It's the way we do business now. So that's made a massive difference to how inclusive we are, the sense of belonging that we foster. But also, it's no surprise to me that that's twinned with us having great output. And, we buy into having diverse workforce in terms of background, perspective, skill set will get better outcomes. It only works if it all works. So it's great to be able to see it happening right in front of me, really. And that's something that we're trying to do on a global level now. So that's working well. I think on an industry level, there have been a few moments of, again, there's been a groundswell. If you look back to 1990, Marilyn Baxter wrote a brilliant white paper at the IPA called Women in Advertising. And you read that to now, and half of it you can't believe has been written. You're like, it comes across as, oh my God, did that ever exist? But half of it, terrifyingly, sounds exactly like today. And having been part of them, we do one of those papers every 10 years at the IPA, looking at what we'd now call diversity, equity, and inclusion in advertising. And you can see great strides have happened. And I think there've been a few moments. There's been COVID, there's been the murder of George Floyd, that really took the understanding of importance of mental health. I think things that were peripheral for many people have now become so front and center to leaders in agencies and client organizations that I see real commitment and effort and collaboration at trying to tackle these, because you can only do so much on your own. We've got a great program here at VCCP. As a big agency, it's important that we do, but to get real shifts, especially in making this industry attractive and available to a much wider demographic in the UK, you can't do that as one agency. You've got to do that acting together. So, I've seen that at the IPA. The IPA has been working hand in hand with ISBA and the Ad Association. You see BRIM that you mentioned in the intro, that's a mixture of trade organizations, clients, and agencies working together. So I think there's so much going on now versus what was happening even 5 years ago, let alone 10 or more, that I see huge reasons for optimism. But equally, the job's never done.
No, never done. And, I can only hope that a number of these initiatives continue that drive to give people opportunity. In different parts of the world, diversity meaning a different thing, but it's that opportunity that means so much to the individuals.
I definitely agree. And I think, there's that often used phrase of talent's evenly distributed, opportunity isn't. But it's equally important to say it's not easy, because there's so many priorities for people in leadership positions in organizations, and number one is going to be looking after the people they have and putting, feeding the agency staff that they have. But at VCCP, it was really important for us to make sure we weren't just talking a good game, but we were acting. So recently we opened in Stoke, which was a real attempt to get ourselves out of the London bubble, to get to a part of the country it's deprived economically. It's a high Brexit voting council city, and it's bang in the middle of the country. So it felt like a brilliant place for us to be, to understand the country, understand Britain, to find untapped talent, and to really walk the walk. Now we've had great success there, and we've twinned with Staffordshire Uni and Keele and local colleges, and so we get young people through. And we're building an agency there. We have an academy, we have a studio there. Sometimes we have people from the London office who go up there. Some have moved there to look after it. it's a fantastic example of putting the effort in and getting some great results and doing good things. But it's not easy. You know, there's a certain scale we need to be able to divert resources to do that. So I think it's really important that agencies share their learning, share their failures with each other. It doesn't always work out. There's been lots of initiatives that have been very well-meaning that haven't worked. So that's why I'm a big believer in leaning across the industry to really try and accelerate change, because you know it's you're not going to do it all on your own.
No. And digital's a great example of that. Technology, you know, I see a lot of businesses up in Leeds and Manchester, you know, that are, you know, 200, 300 plus now, or some of the leading gaming companies that are based up north. The dial shifted. And I think, you know, last week at London Tech Week, I got to see that even more about promoting, you know, what the UK can do on the international stage. And there was that intersection of politics with brands, businesses, and investors.
Yes.
If you could take some of the initiatives or create your own one and take it to, you know, the government level, you know, what would the policy be? What do you feel would make and create more opportunities for these people, similar to the leadership career that you've had?
Yeah, I think there's a huge opportunity for the UK right now when it's in pretty tough times, on a number of fronts, to take a real, or to make the most and double down on a leadership position that we have in tech. Because as you say, we've got a real wealth of talent right across the UK in the cities you mentioned. Bristol as well, you know, it's a real hotbed of talent, of you know, the intersection of creativity and technology. So I think anything that can be done to help fund training, anything that can help to give tax breaks, to encourage further investment, anything that can be done with trade barriers, really, can to help and encourage investment, to foster the talent that we have, and also to make noise about it. You know, I'm frequently work with UK AEG to get out there and talk and showcase the brilliant work that's been done in the UK, whether that's in America at South by Southwest, whether that's in Europe or over into APAC. There's the best brands in the world want to work with the best talent in the world. And we're lucky enough, through the talent that we have across the UK, the training that's available here, and also the talent who wants to come to the UK, that we're quite a unique island, you know, and GMT helps as well. So we're able to service both the East and the West. So you know, my message to government and policymakers is to really double down on that, because given we're at the forefront and the rate of change of technology, you know, there's opportunity for us to really to push on. Equally, if we don't, you know, there's huge advances happening, as in Mumbai 3 weeks ago. And if you just look at the scale of highly trained talent that's coming through, working with latest technology, it's crucial that we keep investing and make it possible for organizations to invest. To, you know, we want to lead, but if we don't, we'll find we're sort of struggling to keep up.
I think so. I think you're right. And, you know, I see that on the international stage, and I'm sure you do too. But Dougie, thank you for your time today. It's been amazing looking back over your career. It's been amazing hearing your thoughts. And I hope that some people listening to this take some of the advice to heart and look at what VCCP, look at what you have done in terms of leveling the playing field and giving opportunity to others. I think it's brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you very much.